Hello everybody, and Merry Christmas. Welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish audio drama review. In today's review, I'm going to be taking a look at the concluding box set for the 8th Doctor for 2023. It is, of course, in the Bleak Midwinter, featuring 3 festive-themed stories, perfect for the winter season. This box set is of course available to order now on the Big Finish website on both physical CD and digital download, and can also be purchased in a bundle alongside the previous box set within this series, being Audacity, something of which, that before we even get into the details of this review, I do definitely recommend listening to that box set before this one, if you want to get a sense of the dynamic between the 8th Doctor and Audacity. Although, if you're just wanting some regular festive tales, this box set will definitely be for you. So this box set does contain 3 festive episodes, all of which are very self-contained, although do have some little Christmassy threads which link them all together. So getting right into the stories within this set now, the box set starts off with 24 Days in December, as written by John Dorney. And instantly I'm feeling within the festive spirit, despite not being, I think it's fair to say, for quite some time. And this is rather fitting because Al Norton, who this story centres around, is also not particularly feeling in the festive spirit. He plays Santa within a London department store, and basically his job, as well as his life basically, is falling apart due to various things that have occurred over the last few years, making this Christmas in particular rather difficult. I think that this story perfectly embraces that very human feeling of Christmas being seen as this perfect time of year, when in reality lots of people have different things to deal with, and I think that this episode nicely symbolises that. So the Doctor, Audacity and Charley Pollard, how exciting. I love that reveal at the very end of the last box set, something of which that I didn't talk about within the review due to the cover art not revealing that Charley was in the next set. It's going to be really interesting travelling with not one but 2 historical companions that come from 2 completely different time periods, and instantly within this story I think that we get a glimpse into the strengths of this TARDIS team and what they all bring to the table. Basically, if you like the 8th Doctor Adventures series Stranded, then this episode will probably be right up your street, as the Doctor decides to celebrate Christmas within Baker Street, London. He decides to park the TARDIS for a month, and basically we see the TARDIS team living the experience, that build up to Christmas, which some often say is more festive than actual Christmas itself, which I think is a really lovely idea for a story, because we get that sense that time has passed, and as we see the recurring characters throughout the story, we get to see a rather lovely window into their lives. So Al Norton has been suffering from various different hallucinogenic style experiences, and he thinks that he is losing his mind. Basically, over the past few years, he no longer sees his family, his marriages fell apart, he no longer sees his child, but also his acting job has started to go down the drain a little bit, so things in life aren't going too well, it's hard to be in the festive spirit, and he also thinks that he's losing his mind because he's seeing these people and these disaster scenarios, of which aren't particularly normal. I think that this is a really intriguing way to set off a Doctor Who story, and for the most part of the episode, the purpose behind these visions is very unknown, and I do like the way that the episode keeps the listener hooked. Certainly for me, I was intrigued as to where the episode was going to go, because I don't think it reveals too much, but I think the ending is incredibly rewarding, and having none other than John Watkins playing Al Norton, basically a household acting name, what a joy and what a brilliant person to get in for a Big Finish audio drama, and I think he really does bring something very special to this story. Also as well, by having the TARDIS team live out Christmas, or the run up to Christmas, it means that not everything is Christmassy. The thing with Doctor Who Christmas specials is everything is very over the top. We have Christmas everywhere, you're being choked by Christmas. But within this story, I feel like we have a very realistic take on Christmas, that run up where everything isn't Christmassy all the time, such as the TARDIS team going to a cafe and hearing Christmas music in the background, the occasional Christmas carol here and there. It's a really nice way to kind of get into the Christmas spirit, so I definitely recommend this one for kind of early December running up to Christmas. Although, admittedly, by having these characters live out seemingly a regular life for a while, with the Doctor planning a Christmas party for the children of a local hospital, which is lovely, and he wants to get a Santa involved from one of the local companies, we don't actually see them doing the big Christmas shop in Asda, which, I think personally is a missed opportunity. That would have been hilarious. Again, I think that John Dorney's way of writing the Eighth Doctor is something very special because we have this character that is very distant, but also very funny. I think Paul McGann plays the role with so much enthusiasm, and he feels very human and very emotional, but also so alien at the same time. Like, he says things that aren't really meant to be funny, but they are. There is a particular highlight where the Doctor is at the door of Baker Street and Santa and one of his elves appears, and just the interaction there is really funny, and I just find the Eighth Doctor so entertaining within the audio drama form. It's like, for me, I don't need a visual aid to keep me stimulated when it comes to the Eighth Doctor. I feel like his voice alone captures all of the emotion, and it just carries the story in a really effective way. Now that I've listened to the entirety of this set, one thing I do feel very safe in saying is if you are a Big Finish fan that prefers alien worlds, alien invasion, lots of alien interaction, then this box set probably will not be for you, because all three of the stories within this set are very, very human in focus. They all have a central human character that kind of makes the story flow. And this episode arguably is one of the strongest of the three, because I think the story behind John Watkins' character is just so immersive, and I feel like, although with it being Doctor Who, it doesn't really dig into the proper nitty-gritty of the issue, I think that John Dorney's way of writing is very effective because you can read in between the lines. Obviously, Doctor Who does remain quite PG, but I think that it does enough so the listener can definitely get in the shoes of this character and sort of feel his sadness. One of my favourite moments within the story is when Charley and Audacity are making a Christmas cake, and they're getting ready for Christmas, and they're talking about their various traditions, and Charley says, Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without... And then she stops and goes, I don't know where I was going with that. I thought it was a really lovely moment. So yeah, well done, John Dorney, for that. Christmas indeed wouldn't be Christmas without Miss Badley's plum pudding. We all need it in our lives. Definitely one of my favourite elements of the story is that whole concept of approaching fears, and the way that Al within the story does indeed tackle his fears head on. He believes that these really bad things are going to happen, and the feeling of relief that can come as a result of tackling those fears, I think that was really pleasant to listen to. So yeah, this is a very strong start to this set. So Tim Foley has written the second story of the set, entitled The Empty Man, and it's a ghost story with a sci-fi twist. The episode opens with Eldridge Brinkwood telling his ghost stories across the radio, which is a nice little niche genre, I suppose, especially given that we are listening to Big Finish currently, or at least I was when experiencing this story. However, the Doctor, Charley and Audacity crash into his life with a ghost of their own hot on their tail. But what does this spirit want, and are ghosts actually real? Firstly, I love the way that this story ties to not only wider Eighth Doctor canon, but also the fact that we have direct references to the previous story as well, giving the whole box set that sense of cohesion. All of the episodes are tied together, it feels like we're going in a direction, and I like the way that it also references that past between the Eighth Doctor and Charley too, the fact that they've been travelling together for quite some time, but also the fact that Lady Audacity is still new to her travels within the TARDIS. I think that really is a credit to both the actors and the writing within this episode, because you can feel that sense of history between the characters, and I suppose lack of history between the Doctor and Audacity within the writing, but also the way that the episodes are performed. I really do hope, because once again we have a few challenges that appear within this story, Audacity thinking of the everyday people, which is something the Eighth Doctor and Charley kind of overlook at times, and I hope that we start to see that being played with a little bit more as we progress later on within this series, perhaps once all the Christmassy stuff is out of the way. So the Doctor believes that the ghost has basically followed them from the depths of space, because one of the Doctor's traditions around Christmas is to adventure in a part of space that he's not particularly too familiar with, and this scene really reminded me of Wild Blue Yonder, actually, the most recent, or one of the most recent TV Doctor Who stories. But I like the way that it kind of plays with that idea of darkness. Of course, ghosts are normally associated with night time and spookiness on Earth, and I suppose that's been taken away and replaced with the concept of the deep darkness of space. Nicholas Grace is absolutely superb as writer Eldridge Brinkwood. Of course, he tells his stories across the radio. However, it's clear that this character is going through not particularly the best time at the minute, and he's basically a fourth addition to the TARDIS team throughout this story, and I feel like he really works, and that is crucial for a four-hander episode. The listener needs to feel involved with this character, and as always, I think that Tim Foley has done a great job to give the character that sense of depth. His past past is explored, his career, his hopes, his dreams, but also that sense of sadness in particular around the festive season. I like the way that despite being a historical figure, he is also very open-minded, which is, perfect for the encounters that he has throughout this story, in particular the ghost that is following them around London. As I say, that's the thing with Tim Foley's writing. I think it's one of his strengths, making an impact with a character that we all know is only going to stick around for one story, but he puts a lot of attention into making that character the focus of the piece, giving them a notable presence, and by the end the listener has been well and truly taken on a journey with this character. And I think that's really important. I feel like Tim Foley always brings to his scripts that sense of humanity, in particular because this is a Christmas special. I feel like it embodies Christmas, but it embodies those less perfect elements of Christmas, such as people being alone at Christmas, people dealing with family struggles. But I think ultimately by doing a character piece like this, it showcases the strengths of his writing, but equally the strengths of the current TARDIS team and the way they respond to this situation. Of course, through opening the episode with a lovely bit of dialogue from Eldridge reading one of his stories on the radio, I really do wish that the story used that a little bit more, maybe had the ghost kind of utilising that format of storytelling to kind of communicate with the main characters. I don't want to say too much, but that does kind of happen within the later half, but I just wish it was done more, because when it was done, it was really spooky and cool. I think that Jay Griffiths really stands out in this story, actually. I think that she has a few really lovely moments, especially when Lady Audacity kind of questions the morals and beliefs and approaches to things by Charley, who's been travelling in the TARDIS for quite some time, but also the Doctor as well. I think that within this series, he's perhaps using Christmas as a little bit of an excuse to kind of hide his internal unhappiness, essentially, but also the way that Charley instantly brushes things off that are actually quite a big thing for Audacity. And again, I really do hope that that is explored within the later box sets, but I do think her observations are really intriguing because she believes that the way that people travel with the Doctor for extended periods of time definitely changes people, but also it perhaps changes them for the worse rather than the better, and I do really like that idea. The ending of the story is really emotional, actually. I'm not going to mention anything about it. However, I really liked it. I really, really liked it. It was very poetic. It was, considering it's audio as well, I definitely visualised it within my mind. And again, it kind of celebrated humans and celebrated sort of life. But yeah, it was quite hard-hitting, actually. But I think it did the right amount of hard-hitting for a Christmas special. I think it's a Christmas special with a message. So the box set concludes with Winter of the Demon as written by Roy Gill. The Doctor, Charley and Audacity land in Edinburgh and they soon come across the winter burnings. Another victim is burnt to death, but why? The episode begins as quite the murder mystery, with the Doctor going to one of the local pathologists to figure out what's happened to one of the victims, and it definitely reminded me of Professor George Lightfoot and the Doctor going to see him. So yes, that was a rather nice memory unlocked. Meanwhile, Charley and Audacity go to this local event with Captain Archie McKellen, who lives in Edinburgh, who is a part of one of the guards, and basically there is a celebration because there is this person called Donald Shaw who has quite a lot of money and he's invested in Edinburgh and he wants to illuminate it, although it is very clear that he has alternative motives. What I do always like with Roy Gill's stories is that he ensures that the location plays a key role within the narrative, and throughout the character of Captain Archie McKellen, we definitely get to experience this historical version of Edinburgh. We get to learn about various different points around the city. I think it's fair to say there's a little bit of a relationship blossoming between him and Charley, but through their little investigations together, we get to learn about the history of the location, we get to learn about the various things that work around the city, such as the various cannons and things. I think that this really brings the episode to life and makes it rather unique in its own identity. But also, I do like the way that Roy utilises Audacity's historical background within the episode as well. She identifies someone at the party who stands out for similar reasons to herself, and she in fact identifies before even speaking to this person that they are an archaeologist. So we meet the character of Maggie Mackenzie, and she's dealing with a local dig in the area, but she's not particularly too happy to be attending the party because it's taking her away from her work. So instantly her and Audacity click, and their bond throughout the story is quite brief enough, but I think it really works to highlight more of Audacity's personality, and I do think that's one of the things that has maybe been lost from this Christmassy themed box set, and it's having that key focus on the companions because there is so much Christmassy stuff going on. I do feel like it's definitely stagnated that character development a little bit for the two TARDIS team members, but given that we are hopefully going to get more from this TARDIS team in the future, I'm hoping that maybe the next box set makes up for that. But I think that this works as a celebratory piece. It's a nice trilogy of Christmassy themed stories, and I suppose if this TARDIS team are travelling together for quite a period of time, by having this Christmassy setting, it eases the characters in, it gets them to know each other essentially before maybe we have the more hard-hitting character stories in the future. There is a moment around the midpoint of the story where we come across a statue that is brought to life, and I wasn't a big fan of this, although it's completely personal preference because the creature or the statue has a big boomy voice, and it's one of my things that I just don't like with the audio drama format, because I think as soon as a foe or a threat has a big boomy voice, they all sound the same to me. They don't particularly last long within the story, which I was kind of thankful for. But yeah, it kind of brought a little bit of excitement and life to the story. But that said, I definitely think the episode finds itself more within the second half as the TARDIS team start to tackle the issue. They start to realise what Donald Shaw's plans actually are. And you know, there's that nice link because the location is very historical, it has a lot of history, but equally the foe of the story also has quite a lot of history to it. You know, we're possibly dealing with some form of ancient force within this episode, so I do quite like that. I like that time parallel once again, but I do think that maybe the episode takes a little bit too long to get going. I think the way that Roy writes the 8th Doctor within this episode is also really effective. I think he definitely gets the spirit of the 8th Doctor. I think that you definitely get that sense throughout this story that he is a person from a distant world, and he kind of tries to influence humanity in a good way, but then at the same time there is that clear separation between the two, especially because we're dealing with an 8th Doctor who's travelling with Charley, so it's a little bit earlier on within his era. He's not had his mind wiped as much just yet, and of course he's not met Liv and everyone else in between that. The Time War is still a long way off, so I do enjoy hearing this more happy, positive version of the 8th Doctor, who's a bit more hopeful and looking to investigate the universe. And I love the way that Archie sort of experiences the TARDIS for the first time within this episode, but the Doctor explains it in a really sort of accessible way. Due to him being a character from history, he sort of discusses time, and obviously within the story, as you'll find out if you listen to this one, there's this whole concept of time being sort of used in Edinburgh to track out the ships, and there's cannonballs that are launched at various different times. So then the Doctor uses that whole analogy to kind of explain the TARDIS to Archie and go, well, this is my way of sort of presenting time. And yeah, it's a really lovely way to kind of bring the character into the story. But also I think he works well within this TARDIS team. This is 2 episodes on the trot now where they've introduced a secondary character that's only sticking around for 1 episode, but they nicely integrate into this TARDIS team. And I don't think that the rest of the TARDIS team actually feel left out because of that. I think that all of them still get somewhat adequate attention. But I feel like on all 3 occasions throughout this set, all of these characters that are brought in for 1 episode are definitely very influential on the plot and make all 3 stories something unique. So there we have it, that is my review of In the Bleak Midwinter. Overall for this trilogy of stories, it's quite fun, it's quite festive, although it wasn't quite what I was expecting. All 3 stories kind of remain around the same level, a very character-focused drama, and as a result, I feel like this box set won't be for all types of Big Finish listener. But then again, I think that's what makes a box set work, because Christmas is a very human thing, and I think perhaps, you know, setting Christmas on an alien world would have definitely plummeted this story into a brand new territory, and it may have stuck out like a sore thumb, so I definitely appreciate the human angle that this box set goes down. I think that the protagonists definitely stand out. I think that the main TARDIS team are very fun. Paul McGann is on top form as ever, although I really do hope that the next box set kind of puts Charley and Audacity, in particular Audacity, at the forefront. Maybe we could have an Audacity focused story just to kind of highlight some of the issues that she comes across within this box set. But overall it's really enjoyable, and I can imagine myself certainly returning to this one over the festive period. You know, in years to come, maybe I will attach it into my traditional, or seemingly now, traditional annual listen of The Chimes of Midnight, which if you've not listened to that story, then definitely go and listen to it, because it is one of Big Finish's best. So thank you very much for watching this review. Have a nice day, since it's very close to Christmas. Merry Christmas, and I wish you all the best for 2024.